And it is our favorite time of the week. We save it for the end of the week to send us off to the weekend in the right mind spirit. Mr. Teddy Greenstein from the Chicago Tribune, back at home from a little hiatus, man. How was the R&R? Did you get some good stuff in while you were on a little break?
Well, hello, Daddy-O. Good to actually see you, man. This is a good new format. Usually I can't see you and Greg, so glad we got that.
Live from my basement.
Some things in life are getting better. Not that many, unfortunately, with the news today about the Big Ten. But, yeah, I mean, I'm on a 3-week furlough right now from the Tribune. So trying to take advantage with some family time and certainly playing some golf. My game's getting worse, but nobody cares. And taking a golf trip next week. But tough news from the Big Ten today, not at all surprising. I think we've been talking about this week after week. It's been trending this way, and I'm sure we'll get into it.
Yeah, you may or may not have had some intel on this a couple of days ago, but it is announced. Big Ten did say conference only, and a couple of caveats in there too, Teddy, that if they can play, barring the health and safety, they kind of threw those, one line in at the end, and then they snuck another line in there too. If we can play. So starting first with your reaction to this, as you said, there's a lot of smoke around this for a long time, and finally some fire with the conference announcing it today. I mean, what type of step do you suppose this is for the Big Ten being the first ones to come out and make this decision?
And a lot of this follows the Ivy Leagues, and we're not surprised. I mean, it started well, honestly, I mean, if you want to go back a few weeks, and we've been talking about it on the show with Greg, when I spoke to kind of a higher-up Big Ten official, and he had said a few weeks ago, feeling less optimistic every day, and at that point he thought 50-50 that college football is played at all. And then since then, Harvard cancels on-campus classes, and I think follow the nerds is something we all need to do. Obviously, Harvard was one of the first to shut down in March. They often know what's going on. And if there's no on-campus classes at Harvard, you worry about the Big Ten. But football-wise, something that I had thought about a while ago is, like, if you're Northwestern, do you really want to take the chance and play Morgan State? Like, what kind of COVID testing does Morgan State have? If you're Illinois, do you want to play UConn? UConn lost $40 million last year in its athletic budget. So how can you count on schools like that following really good protocols? And then couple other factors. When you cancel the non-conference, you have more control over the schedule. So now the Big Ten can really just sort of tear it up and start all over and do it exactly how the league wants. Now, what I'd also heard a couple days ago, and this is going to be very interesting to see how it plays out, is it 10 games over 10 weeks, or more likely 10 games over 13 weeks. 10 games over 13 weeks satisfies the TV partners, because obviously there's 13 weeks of content, and also gives a few sort of buffer weeks. Then you have some weeks there where if games have to get canceled or postponed, you can slide them to those weeks. Now, I think this is all just an activity and banging our heads against the wall, because I don't think there's going to be college football anyway, but I think you want to at least try. You want to hope there's a breakthrough soon. And you want to still have a schedule. One thing I talked about with a coach the other day was these coaches want there to be a schedule. They don't want a full cancellation, because if there's a full cancellation now, what's going to happen to their players? Their players now have structure. They now are all or most doing the right things in terms of, in terms of social distancing and staying out of bars. If you just say, all right, football's canceled, what do you think the players are going to do? So they want there to be a schedule, even if it gets canceled at a future date.
Yeah, I mean, it makes so much sense on so many different levels, especially there what you were saying about the structure. I was reading an article today that said, is it really better for the college students to not have football when they're under no umbrella? They're going to be out doing their own thing as well. Teddy, I like the fact that the Big Ten is a pioneer in this. Is that I say a pioneer, but there's no doubt within talks within other leagues that they're probably have at least at the very, very least thought about doing the same thing. But with having to take this step, how much of this do you feel is that window that, if you and I were talking about this in March, and we may well have had this conversation in March, something that we would have talked about in March is how much time we have. It's a good thing that we have until September to figure this out.
Yeah.
Well, we don't exactly have until September anymore because that window is closing. How much of this is the powers that be going, okay, if we do have a season, we got to get camp going, so we need to put together something. How much of it was that of we got to come up with something and we got to start implementing this if it is indeed going to happen?
I mean, yeah, we're running against the clock, but I think more so we're running against the charts right now. And, this country was looking pretty good for a while in terms of containing COVID. And I think, maybe about late May, June 1st, everything was trending the right way. People were feeling optimistic about college football. And then you've got certain states that, were just incredibly irresponsible, just basically pretended that coronavirus wasn't happening. And now we've got 100,000 cases a day or near that. So, don't blame Kevin Warren, the Big Ten commissioner. Don't blame anyone with the league. If anybody wants to blame somebody, blame all the states that were totally irresponsible and didn't take this seriously. And as a result, we're probably not going to have college football. Maybe the SEC is going to try. But the problem, as you know, Ben, is, the concept of a bubble. You can do it with the NBA. That's obviously fewer teams, way fewer players, and kind of a shorter period of time. I think you can probably do it with the NFL. You can basically tell all these guys, this is your livelihood. If there are no games, you don't get paid. So either spend your time at the football complex or at your house. But you just can't do it with college athletes. You can't tell, a sophomore at Wisconsin, hey, don't go out. Don't go to a classroom. Don't go to your dorm. I mean, it's just kind of not feasible. So we're all still hoping there's going to be college football, but I think this announcement today is kind of a preview of what's to come. Some games have been canceled, and again, it's worth it to try. Maybe there'll be a miracle cure. Maybe there'll be a vaccine long before others think there will be. I mean, on that front, I'm hearing some good news potentially. I think there's a chance it's going to be October from a doctor friend of mine who believes he's pretty tapped in. But yeah, Gene Smith said it. We've been losing this battle in the last couple of weeks and last month or so, and I think this is really a result of that.
Teddy, let's just assume for 1 second that best case scenario, there is a season. This format that was laid out by the Big Ten today is going to happen. We're going to have a 10-game conference season, and everything's going to be great. I think there are 2 points that I want to bring up with you before we hang up. And the first one is, what happens to all of the schools that, and I can't give this person credit because I can't remember who it was off the top of my head, but it wasn't me that came up with this idea. But Bowling Green, for example, is supposed to make $2.2 million from playing two Big Ten schools. Well, those are both taken off the table. What type of repercussions does it have for those schools that are already dealing with a mess financially, but now they can't bank on a good percentage of their athletic budget by playing these giants?
Ben, I had talked to Sean Frazier at Northern Illinois. He's the athletic director there at NIU maybe a month ago, and he had told me, his guarantee, the Huskies were going to receive $1.1 million from Iowa for playing this year. And to put that in perspective, NIU's entire athletic budget is $30 million. So just from that game alone, I think at 3.7% or something like that. And, that was an early concern of a lot of folks in the Big Ten. Oh, my God, if we cancel these games, we're writing these $1 million checks, and what are we doing? I think there's going to be certainly some checks written, but I think a lot of those games will just get postponed until future seasons. And it's the price you have to pay because obviously right now, conference only is an absolute best case scenario. And it completely stings for the MAC schools, for the FCS, probably for the Sun Belt if they get games canceled by the SEC and ACC. So much, I hate to be so down, but just so much financial misery ahead. I mean, you saw Stanford, just canceled a bunch of teams. I mean, they were at 36, so certainly they had, if you want to look at it, they certainly had room to cut. Obviously awful for the athletes and parents involved. But, you wonder, some of these smaller schools, are they only going to have basically football and men's basketball? Are athletic departments going to be run strictly like businesses, where if that program doesn't make money, it's no longer going to exist? Hopefully these are all just short-term issues and a lot of short-term pain, and we'll be some kind of back to normal late this year, early next year.
Well, let's just finish it out with the same tone that we've had for the interview in the last 8 minutes or so. Here's another thought that I had today. Let's say that, if we're still assuming that it's going to be a 10-game conference schedule, and we make it through it, but from what I can tell, there are a lot of experts that are predicting another wave of this. How do you handle a postseason with this? How do you handle a conference championship? How do you handle sending teams to the postseason? Do you have a postseason? If you're not having a postseason, why are you playing, type of thing? I mean, what are your thoughts there?
You're going to make me cry, man. I know. This should be like one of those national newscasts where at least they end on, they show penguins in the zoo or something to give people a little higher spirit. But no, I think, Ben, all that stuff is just not determined right now. It's kind of like, you got your baby. I mean, you're not planning the college right now, right? You're not doing college admissions because it's just one thing at a time.
Yeah.
And I think for Big Ten football, it's the same thing. They're just trying to get everyone tested and see if they can pull off voluntary workouts followed by mandatory workouts. See if they can get it right in terms of, the athletes then who test positive, how they quarantine. See if they can suit up for week one before they would worry about a second wave and conference championship games. Maybe there's a plan out there. I know there's obviously some people are saying make a plan for spring football. Other people, including me, think that's not feasible at all. I saw Urban Meyer's, comments on that. He thinks it's a ridiculous idea. I tend to agree. So one day at a time, my man. Hopefully they'll get some workouts in, and maybe there'll actually be some football in September.
Yeah, we will see. Okay, well, let's try and finish it on a positive note here. And I'm really scraping at the bottom of the barrel. I know you're a food guy. When you go to the East Coast, what's the one or two things that you got to eat when you're back in the homeland, and you teach the kiddos that, okay, this is something that we do as a Greenstein family when we're out here. We make sure to eat this.
Well, so when I'm in New York City, when I'm in Manhattan, it's two things. It's bagels and Bialys, the best in the world. And then it's pizza. And you know what? It's a proper New York slice if you can fold it. You take it. A lot of people sort of take one of those cheap napkins and sort of blot out the extra grease on there, and then you fold it up. So that certainly has to happen. And then other spots in the East, like where I was, you go to this roadside place. It's all outdoor seating, and you get lobster rolls. And you can get the hot, which is really just lobster and drawn butter, or you get the cold, where they mix in some celery and mayo, and both are just outstanding. So, back in the Midwest now, I had an Italian beef yesterday. I hope you and Greg have had Italian beef when you come to town, because that stuff is good.
We have, and unfortunately, it was supposed to be a fun thing. It's now a depressing thing, because I realize I don't know when the next time I'm going to be able to smash a Portillo's dog in Chicago is, unfortunately, with this whole deal. But, well, Teddy, I did my best. I did get to see one smile from your face based on the Zoom call at the end, so I suppose we are finishing on somewhat of a positive note. Do your best, man. Hang in there. We appreciate the time, and we'll wait for the next bombshell to drop, which I'm sure will be fairly soon. Thanks a lot, man.
My pleasure, Ben. Take good care. See you guys.
See you later. Teddy Greinstein from the Chicago Tribune with us here on Sports Nightly. Appreciate Teddy's time, as always.